It is a 2-0 series lead now in the Battle of Florida, but now it's in favor of the Panthers. And as my oh, how the turntables.
You're Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into this Wednesday, April 24th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. I'm Armando Velez from the Hockey News. You can follow me on X at Monoman12, follow the show account on X and Instagram at LO_FLA Panthers. And shout out to the everydayers who come back here and get your daily Florida Panthers fix. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. And it's America's #1 sports book. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus winning guaranteed. That's $150 win or lose. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. So the Florida Panthers defeat the Tampa Bay Lightning by a final score of 3-2 in overtime to take a 2-0 series lead for the Florida Panthers, where the Panthers once again dominated the first portion of the game. The momentum shifted in the second. Panthers were starting to tilt the ice in their direction in the third period, but found a way and prevailed in overtime thanks to Carter Verhaeghe, Mr. Clutch. Mr. Carter turned his swag on. He scores another overtime winner for the Panthers, and doing this all with losing Sam Bennett in the middle of the second period. But it is a Wednesday, which means it is a Winans Wednesday edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Jacob Winans is back here on the show. And now, the reason why we are doing this the very next morning of the game instead of immediate postgame is Jacob Winans made the trip over to Sunrise for the game and drove back to Central Florida in the same night. So Jacob, thank you for still doing this on very little sleep. And I'm glad, more importantly, I'm glad you made it back home safely. But welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you for having me. And yeah, it was really, really crazy afternoon yesterday, crazy night. I was definitely dreading overtime, given that it was a 3.5-hour drive for me after that game regardless. And I'm like, oh boy, if we have a marathon overtime, I'm going to be in some trouble. So it was funny. I packed some emergency overnight clothes in case I had to go stay with my family for the night over in Weston, and ended up seeing Carter Verhaeghe bury a goal early in overtime. No bussin' 10 marathon OT last night, which was good for me, good for the Panthers. And man, a 2-0 series lead against Tampa. It's that's huge because it wasn't that long ago we were sitting there and having home ice against Tampa in the playoffs and drop both home games, and the feeling after that one was our season's over. Kind of knew that we weren't going to bounce back in Tampa that year, and like you said, they've turned the tables, and it's really, really exciting to see them halfway to conquering their biggest bully. It's a good feeling right now.
Yeah. And for the Panthers, just the fact that I wasn't expecting for the Florida Panthers to tilt the ice early in game 2 like they did in game 1. Once again, the difference between games 1 and 2 was the play was opened up a little more for as far as quality chances. I felt like the Tampa Bay Lightning had more of those in this one, especially after the 13-1 shot on goal advantage for the Panthers after the first period. And really, you see Panthers go up to 2-0 thanks to Sam Bennett and Vladimir Tarasenko there for the Panthers, and for them and just the ability to still remain calm, weather storms for them, and also the fact that the Panthers were still able to play their game at 5-on-5 when it came to committing more penalties in game 2 versus game 1, 6 of them for the Panthers, including a big kill on a double minor to start the third period too. Panthers had their fair share of man advantages. I mean, one after a challenge by the Tampa Bay Lightning. I mean, they went 11-7 on the night too because of their fair share of injuries. So the Panthers are really taking advantage of out of position, winning their board battles, forecheck, and really equaling them out in special teams, because through 2 games, 2 power play goals for the Panthers, 2 power play goals for the Lightning.
Yeah, and that was going to be a key coming in if the Panthers were going to have any chance of winning this series, was you can't let Tampa's power play run you out of this series. We've seen that happen before. Tampa has won entire series in their kind of sustained run of dominance in the East. They've won entire playoff series just off of having a dominant power play. It's the best in the league. Their setup, you got Hedman at the top, Kucherov and Stamkos both on opposite ends where they can both shoot one-timers or pass across, and then Brayden Point in the bumper position, who is arguably the second best bumper position player in the entire NHL in the power play, behind Sam Reinhart, obviously. And then that power play is lethal. There's options everywhere, and the Panthers have done a really, really good job defending it. Gus Forsling, it comes to mind immediately because he jumps on Nikita Kucherov immediately when he touches the puck. There's no hesitation. You have to pressure him and make him make his decisions faster than he'd like to. They've done a great job clogging up the passing lanes to Brayden Point in the bumper. Steven Stamkos got loose for a couple one-timers yesterday. One of them goes in, one of them hits the post. But at the end of the day, if you can take away all other options and leave the Stamkos one-timer, at least that's all Bob has to worry about. And most of the time we've seen Bob get to that. Yesterday, one gets by him on a deflection, but he was in good position. Can't really fault him for that one. But yeah, like you said, if you can break even on the power play with that team, you're going to be in good shape. So I think that trend's going to have to continue. Definitely have to stay out of the box, but when you go to the box, the kill was great yesterday. The double minor they killed was game changing, and yeah, if the Panthers can get a couple power play goals of their own and try to even things out, this is the result you're going to get. Even special teams, and the Panthers are going to run them away at 5-on-5. The Panthers are a far better 5-on-5 team.
Yeah, and one of those Stamkos one-timers, the one that hit the post, it was shot so hard that it went out of the zone too. For the Lightning there, and just the fact on that double minor, only 2 shots allowed there, where Etu went to the box for the high stick there, and also the fact that, again, using this term for the Stanley Cup playoffs, war of attrition. You mentioned Gustav Forsling being matched up with Nikita Kucherov. He delivered a hit on him too, and it was basically limping the whole game. I mean, you saw all throughout the third period. I mean, with Lundell and Stenlund going up a line too, where Lundell was starting to get hard on the pucks, and an amazing quick touch pass to Carter Verhaeghe on that game winner, where Steven Stamkos and Eric Chernak have a little bit of a miscommunication there right before the backhand too. You're really seeing Anton Lundell's game really improve over the last year, and there's a reason why when the trade deadline came around, the whole conversation about if he's going to be traded, I never thought that it was going to make sense, because he's the first guy who goes up the lineup whenever these things happen. And also, Paul Maurice did say about Sam Bennett, an update on him. They won't know until today. The Panthers do practice at War Memorial at noon, but gotta be pleased with the play of Anton Lundell stepping up a line, and him and Kevin Stenlund too, which also Ryan Lomberg did not play because he was ill, with Lawrence going up his spot. But what can we say more about Lundell?
Yeah, Lundell, for a guy his age, has taken on so much responsibility. And that last time he was fantastic, jumping up onto the second line, didn't miss a beat. Obviously, there's major concern about Sam Bennett. That would be a team-changing injury if he misses any time. It is the playoffs. Guys tend to play through things. So I'm certain if it's something super serious and he misses games, it's not good if he's not playing in the playoffs. But we'll hold our breath there and hope it's nothing too serious. But Anton Lundell gives you such a reliable option when guys go down, whether it's Bennett, Barkov, We've even seen Lundell jump up on the wing when there's injuries and or guys aren't playing well. His defensive responsibility is fantastic. He won some huge faceoffs yesterday. He some just massive defensive zone draws that you had to have. The skill is starting to show through a little bit when he plays with good line mates. He has the skill. I thought Lundell was fantastic, stepping up and filling in for Bennett in a pinch. And then Kevin Stenlund definitely deserves some credit too for jumping up into the third line. Increased responsibility there. Again, a lot of defensive responsibility. And then when he jumps up, Lawrence kind of moved over to the center spot on the fourth line where he started the game more playing wing. So it was a lot. It was a gutsy win. Guys had to play about a little over half the game in spots that they weren't planning to play going in. And that's tough to do. But like you said, think about the names of the two guys that Anton Lundell makes that play over in overtime. He beats Steven Stamkos and Eric Chernak to make that play. Those are two multi-time Stanley Cup champions who have been in the league, seen everything there is to see, and have been in every situation that you could possibly be in. And Anton Lundell makes it play over two of the most reliable playoff performers Tampa has. That's big time. And if Bennett misses any time, whether it's short or long term, the Panthers have a guy in Lundell who can play 2C and still be effective.
Yeah, even though Anton Lundell and Kevin Stenlund combined for one shot on goal between the two, their line at 5-on-5, at least the Lundell line with Tkachuk and Verhaeghe, 6-0 as far as shots for and shots against, and 1 goal for, while the opposition got 0 goals against. So just an incredible game by Anton Lundell and that line too. But we're going to transition over to segment number 2. We're going to discuss more about our 3 stars of the game and when the moment we thought this game was won or lost. We're going to discuss this and more here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by eBay Motors and passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance: superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car into the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Also, this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. It's playoff time in the NBA and the NHL. Baseball's in full swing, and FanDuel is your place to bet on every game. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150, win or lose. Bet on everything from slap shots, home runs, slam dunks, and all in an app that's safe, secure, and easy to use. What are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet an automatic win. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Locked On NFL Draft is available right now. Find the ultimate 6-episode series on Locked On NFL Draft to hear from the local Locked On experts who are picking for every NFL franchise, with live reactions from local college football experts and even fantasy football angle. Locked On NFL Draft, available now on Locked On NFL Draft on YouTube or wherever you get podcasts. Back on this Wednesday, April 24th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day, where the Florida Panthers are coming off a 3-2 overtime win over the Tampa Bay Lightning to take a 2-0 series lead in front of a crowd of 19,484 from Amerant Bank Arena. Another raucous crowd waving the towels that they had for their redemption tour. All the Bobby chants in even prior to the game starting. Just an incredible atmosphere. Just if not bad for having 6 fans, as some fans from outside of the region like to say in regard to the Florida Panthers. But for this one, it's funny because, Jacob, did you see what Roy Bellamy posted as far as his 3 stars of the game, like even before he turned it in? Did you see that?
I didn't see it, no.
So he turned it in 10 minutes before the end of the third. He wrote GWG, game-winning goal. The the winning goaltender and then the losing goaltender, because it was a battle of just great goaltending for the Panthers, which we'll get into a specific save a little bit later in this segment. But just the fact that both goaltenders kept it close, and really, this could have been 3-4-0 for the Panthers if it wasn't for Andrei Vasilevskiy, but just but it's just crazy for that, as far as that tweet, and it came to fruition too. But how can you not go? How can you not go in that direction for the Panthers? Carter Verhaeghe, the game winner, now 5 overtime winners in his career, now third most in NHL history, which we'll get more into that in segment number 3. Sergei Bobrovsky, second star, and Andrei Vasilevskiy for the Tampa Bay Lightning is my third star. But honorable mention has to go to the guys like Anton Lundell, Matthew Tkachuk too, who are guys who are just really, really strong on the play, supporting the puck too. So who are your 3 stars of the game for the Florida Panthers from last night's 3-2 overtime win?
Yeah, we tend to differ sometimes on this, but this one is as cut and dry as it can be. It's Verhaeghe number 1, Bob number 2, and Vasi number 3. There's no debating that. It was incredible goaltending battle in that game. Either team could have scored probably 5 goals, and just massive saves on both ends, trading chances, and both goalies stood on their head. We've seen a lot of those games where Vasilevskiy will stand on his head, and the Panthers will do everything possible to get a goal by him, and it just seems like he's invincible. To see Vasilevskiy have one of those games where he looks superhuman and you couldn't beat him, and to actually steal it because our goalie was as good or better. And last night, Bob was better, and it just took one more chance for the Panthers than the Lightning got. And we know Vasi can steal games, so to steal one back when he's in that zone, that is huge, because this is such a different story if it's 1-1 headed back to Tampa.
Oh, no doubt. And just the confidence that Tampa Bay would have after if it were to shift, especially after specific if save that could have been a goal, that could have been crucial for the Florida Panthers, and would create a little bit of nervousness definitely around this fan base. But the moment where we thought this game was won or lost, there's so many different moments for me. There was when the Panthers were up 2-0. I was thinking of when the Tampa Bay Lightning had the puck in the Panther zone for the first 3 or 4 minutes. I was thinking, okay, the Tampa Bay Lightning aren't even generating a shot, and that's when the Florida Panthers really were starting. And then you think of the Bob save on Matt Dumba, where he had the spin-o-rama that stopped, not necessarily with his glove, with his forehand for him. Then you think of the Duke breakaway too, of which we've seen this movie before with breakaways and Duke and the inability to finish. But none of those are my moment, believe it or not. My moment is when they stopped the 4-on-4 against the Tampa Bay Lightning in the beginning of the third period too, and that was huge, because you're thinking special teams in this, and that's where you got to do to match. And we spoke about it at the top, 2 power play goals each and you're equaling them there. And the fact that the Panthers were able to stop that double minor, that's where I thought the game was won for the Panthers, even though there were different moments that you could point to. How about yours?
Yeah, so in playoff hockey, especially overtime playoff hockey, it's hard to say that you are confident in any single moment winning the game, because we know how these games can go. But I think killing that double minor was probably tied for my moment. And that penalty kill in particular, just I feel like it doesn't get enough attention based on how that game went. There were so many other things to point to in that game. But
2 shots on goal in it. 2 shots on goal.
That particular penalty kill was absolutely insane. And think about who was in the box for that one. That was Etu in the box, who is arguably your best or second best penalty killer. I thought for sure that we were giving up at least one on that power play for Tampa, but that was a gutsy penalty kill. We even saw Lawrence and Tkachuk get a shift out there, and those guys aren't usually on the PK. They did their job. That was fantastic defensive hockey on that PK. But my moment that I knew this game was won, it's got to be the Bob save. We're going to get into it a little more here, but it has to be that Bob save. It felt like one of those moments where the entire game could have shifted. I didn't think we were going to beat Vasi again during regulation, at least. I didn't think we were going to beat him again. Going down 3-2 there and giving up all the momentum, I felt like that was disaster waiting to happen. And that save from Bob, it just felt like one of those ones. We've seen these in the playoffs, not just in cup finals, but you think of Braden Holtby save, you think of Aiden Hill save last year. We've seen these iconic saves in the playoffs where it's just like, you know how the game's going to go because that save was made, and it wouldn't be right if it didn't go a certain way based on that kind of a moment. And I felt like that was Bob's moment. It just felt to me, there's no way they're going to lose this game after he made that save. That was everything.
I don't think there's any wrong answers here based on when we thought the game was won or lost, because like you said, playoff hockey, there's different moments where you can think that it could, because of just the ebbs and flows, how it's hard for someone to take the bull by the horns for an entire game, or even a good portion and it's even with these two games, it wasn't one team taking over for a majority of the time after the first 20 minutes, really, for either of the first two games. First 20, different story, but after that, for not necessarily the same. But also the players spoke about it after the game. Bob spoke about how it was a shot that was first miss, and then he just made a desperation play, and things are like a roller coaster. He said he didn't really see the replay. He was just focused on the moment, and you like that out of a goaltender. Verhaeghe spoke about how every night he amazes me, and then Ekblad was talking about his view from the bench. Paul Maurice speaking about his 1800 games, that is top 10 as far in regards to best saves that he's seen on that spin-o-rama, getting it on his forearm. So that's the save heard across the hockey world that really changed things for the Florida Panthers. So, and that's why you pay the man $10 million for these moments. Like, in really these last three postseasons, you got to be really, really pleased with what Sergei Bobrovsky has brought to the table, everything and more. That's why you hear all the Bobby chants. South Florida loves them some Sergei Bobrovsky. We're going to transition over to segment number 3, where we're going to discuss more about the history that is going on with the Florida Panthers, Carter Verhaeghe, and more about the last time the Florida Panthers lost an overtime game, to really discuss more about where the Florida Panthers stand in this part of their life. We're going to discuss that and more here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Sleeper, and we are through 2 games of the postseason, and regardless of where the Florida Panthers are in this first round series, I want to remind you that you can win big by playing daily fantasy hockey on Sleeper, the official daily fantasy app of the Locked On NHL Network. Sleeper is our number 1 choice for daily fantasy sports, especially daily fantasy hockey, because with Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash in daily fantasy contests. All you have to do is pick studs like Connor McDavid, Alex Ovechkin, Nathan McKinnon, Jason Robertson. If they will record more or less their Sleeper projections for things like goals, assists, saves, plus minus in a given game. To win a 100 times bet on Sleeper, you need to correctly predict the outcome of 8 player stats. You heard me, Cats fans. You can win 100 times your money playing daily fantasy hockey with Sleeper. So start paying attention and nail your picks so you can start winning big. Use code LOCKEDONNHL and you'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's code LOCKEDONNHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details and locational availability. Also, this episode is brought to you by Indeed. And when you're drafting your fantasy team, do you ever wish you could handpick the best stars on your business team? If you're building your talented roster, you need Indeed. Indeed is the hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. Find top talent faster with Indeed's suite of powerful hiring tools like matching, assessment, and virtual interviews. Indeed knows when you're growing your own business, you have to make every dollar count. That's why with Indeed, you only pay for quality applications that match your must-have job requirements. Visit Indeed.com/lockedon to start hiring now. Visit Indeed.com/lockedon. Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Cost per application pricing not available for everyone. Need to hire? You need Indeed. Segment number 3 here on this Wednesday, April 24th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day here on a Wednesday. And just to discuss more about the history that the Florida Panthers are going through right now, it's just we never really appreciate it while we are living in it. But game 1, Paul Maurice becomes the winningest coach in Florida Panthers history in the postseason, passing Doug McClain. And then Carter Verhaeghe, with what he has consistently done in overtime, dating back to 2022 against the Washington Capitals, multiple times for them, Boston, Game 3 against Vegas, and even going to this one, 5 overtime winners for him, and only trails 2 guys in NHL history for overtime game winners in the postseason, and that is Joe Sakic and Maurice Rocket Richard. Just incredible company for him to be in. For Verhaeghe, he's tied with Patrick Kane and has played a quarter of the games. When Paul Maurice was asked about this from Kobe Guy of Florida Hockey Now about that, Maurice kind of joked with him saying, "You're not going to leave us hanging. Tell us who the names are." And then Maurice just knowing, wow, this is the company he's in. And even Ekblad, when they were on the podium together, you hear Ekblad do a when hearing that. So also Ekblad spoke about just Carter Verhaeghe's constant preparation. Let's not forget, this guy was a leading scorer in the AHL when he was with Tampa Bay too. So just goes to show just the preparation that he consistently puts, the work he continues to put in, that just results in this. It's just putting all the ingredients better for your protein shake, and then the protein shake coming out the way you like it. So your thoughts on just Carter Verhaeghe overall and just the history that he's making, not only for the Florida Panthers, but the NHL.
Yeah, well, it's at a point now where he has a reputation as probably the clutchest playoff performer in the league right now. And you don't get that by luck. Maybe a couple of playoff OT goals, you can say guys in the right place at the right time, knows how to come through for his team. But we're at 5 now. Carter Verhaeghe is the single most clutch playoff performer in the NHL right now. And that doesn't mean he's the best offensive weapon in the league or anything by any stretch. But that does mean when it's down to the wire, when the game is on the line, he's a guy you can count on. He's going to come through for you more times than not. We've seen it countless times. The overtime winner against the Capitals to win that series, the 5-point game against the Capitals to take a 3-2 lead in that one. We saw him
come back too.
Exactly. We saw him send Boston packing last season. We saw him score the overtime goal for the Panthers to win their first ever Stanley Cup game. And even game 1, it's a tie game, and Verhaeghe's the one who comes through and gives the Panthers the lead. It's more than luck at this point. It's more than just being in the right place at the right time. This is a guy who he's got ice water in his veins. He comes through in the big moments, and the Panthers are going to need more of that. And the other wrinkle to this is these last 2 games where Verhaeghe's come through with huge goals. This is against Tampa. There's some added fire to that because Tampa, if you remember, they had his RFA rights. They could have kept him from leaving. They could have locked him up for however long they wanted to if they believed in his game and his development. They had his RFA rights, could have had him for less than $1 million, and they let him walk. And that's now Verhaeghe has been the catalyst for putting the Panthers up 2-0 against the Lightning. And it's scary, very, very, very scary to think about what Carter Verhaeghe could have become playing in Tampa and how that could have gone. But I'm very, very, very happy, and we're all fortunate that he's here with the Panthers and doing it to Tampa and not for Tampa. But that's got to be sweet, being able to do that against a team that quite literally gave up on you when he had done everything that there was to do there as far as putting in the work to earn a shot, and they didn't give it to him. They buried him on the 4th line, frequent healthy scratch, even though he had put up fantastic AHL numbers and showed that potential, and the Panthers believed in him, and now they're reaping the benefits because these OT playoff performances, it's more than luck. It's more than a trend. This is a proven playoff performer now, and man, he is fun to watch. Just in a close game, the puck is on his stick, everyone's watching. Everyone's out of their seat because something special could happen.
Yeah, and seeing the north-south cam from Emirates Bank Arena, seeing how the crowd was standing up even before the shot, it's like the crowd knew when right before. So if you have a chance to watch that shot from I believe it's the Florida Panthers official Instagram page or their Twitter or their Twitter, I forget which one, or Emirates Bank Arena.
It's on both.
Yeah, it's on both. But so also Maurice spoke about even a few days ago, even after game one, how he strives in the hecticities of the game, something he learned from Ralph Kruger about that. And also Ekblad talking about his clutch gene, how he has it, and so calm under pressure too, in regards to that. But also Verhaeghe's humble about it too. Being in the conversation with those guys is crazy because I don't think he even knew about it too. But also something I want to talk about too is Tampa Bay has lost 10 of their last 11 playoff overtime games, including not only last night, but that game 3 in 2021 where Ryan Lomberg got the game winner off a face-off in their D zone, and then getting the puck out right before the breakaway. But the Florida Panthers, since that awful day in 2016 where Trocheck was tripped, the Florida Panthers have won 11 straight overtime games. And think about where the Florida Panthers were. Yeah, there was a little bit of a drought in between 2016 and the bubble too, which if you want to count that, that's up to you guys for you. But the Panthers are marketing it as 5 straight playoff appearances. But again, 11 straight for the Panthers. And also when the guys were asked that question, Ekblad said it really comes down to the coaching staff and the confidence in the room to make the plays and not be tight. And it really, and I spoke about how Paul Maurice, when the Panthers were on a little bit of a skid, how he chose the right time to be the adult in the room. He once again does this in those kind of situations where the guys are calm. They know they've done it before, especially because the group is not too much turnover. There's turnover, obviously, but still the fact that the core is still there. The pieces necessary for them are still there to make those clutch plays, because you've seen it from Verhaeghe, Reinhart, Matthew Tkachuk multiple times. There's, it's a little bit of a distribution there, but yeah, Verhaeghe is the main guy, but also the fact that there's a calmness in that group whenever they come out. I mean, I was pretty calm going into overtime. I mean, it was 21-11 in slot shots for the Panthers and getting in front of Vasilevsky going into overtime. So I knew that if they were just getting it to the inside inner slot, which that was where the overtime winner was, that they were going to come out on top. So 11-0 since that. Jacob, your thoughts?
Yeah, it's a pretty remarkable streak, and I don't necessarily expect it to fully continue. I'm sure there will be more overtime games this postseason, and it'd be crazy to think that they're going to win all of them. But looking back at last season, they were dominant in overtime in the playoffs, and this year, the game yesterday, it's. I think the key is they don't change their style at all in overtime. You see some teams will play super conservative and just play dump and chase, or when it gets to OT, they're afraid to make a mistake and they don't take any chances, and they just kind of sit there until someone makes a mistake and usually ends up in the back of your own net if you change your game entirely trying to play too cautious. The Panthers do not do that at all. We've seen, and I think they get the confidence to play that way from the back, and that's Bobrovsky. They know he's going to make the saves. If something goes wrong, if all else fails, Bob's going to make the save. We saw that last year. Think about the Carolina series. The overtime games in Carolina. The Panthers didn't change their style at all. Game 3, they arguably won that in overtime early with Ryan Lomberg, but or not game 3. I'm sorry, game 1. They arguably won that early with Ryan Lomberg, and it ended up going to way more overtimes than anyone really wanted to. But the Panthers didn't change their style then, and Bob made the saves for a very long, extended period of time. You saw Vegas; they didn't change their game in Game 3 against Vegas. The Toronto series, there was no changing their style or switching to conservative. There was none of that. And last night, none of that at all, because they trust Bob to make the saves. The Panthers play a really simple game anyway. It's get the puck in, hard forecheck, and that stuff works. It's nothing like 3-on-3 overtime in the regular season. And some teams play really conservative when it gets to these kind of moments, but the Panthers, they don't. They play their same hard forecheck, get the puck deep, get to it quick, put a big hit on the retrieving defenseman, and that's exactly what you see these results for. It's the not deviating from their style, and I think being able to play to your strengths in overtime when other teams get tense or tight and a little bit lax and conservative, that gives you the advantage every time.
The Panthers love it when the other team seems rattled, especially in their own end, and they tend to take advantage of them because they just stick to their identity. That's the simplest way that I could put it for the Panthers in times like this, in pressure situations, and the results that they have been what they have been as far as looking at the overall results. And that's why you got to enjoy the process even before getting to this point, because this is why Paul Maurice discusses more about the habits in their game of what they like versus always winning in the regular season. And now those are starting to come true now in 2 consecutive postseasons, at least so far. We're only through 2 games, so got to pump the brakes there as far as that. But Jacob, I want to thank you so much for joining me on this edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you so much for joining me even the morning after the Panthers come out with this 3-2 win over the Tampa Bay Lightning to take a 2-0 series lead over the Bolts. Tell everybody where they can follow you online, my friend.
Yep, you can follow me on X at Jacob Winans 8, and hopefully I'll see you guys at some of these upcoming games. Let's hope there's not a Game 5, but if there is one, I'll be there. So looking forward to it.
Yep, and maybe next week when you come on the show, we are talking about Panthers advancing but they very well could by the time we have another episode again. So let's see. But Jacob, thank you so much, and see you next week, my friend.
Can't wait. Thank you.
And if you like what you're hearing, please subscribe to the podcast to be notified every single time the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast jumps into your podcast feed. Don't forget to also subscribe to the other shows in the Locked On NHL network, including Locked On NHL, Locked On Fantasy Hockey, Flip Livingstone, and Steer Roden, and Locked On NHL Prospects. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. So I'm Armando Velez with Jacob Winans, and you've been listening to Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We're your team every day.